And we are back on CBS Sports HQ, delivered by Papa John's, and we welcome in, well, we weren't supposed to say it, but it is the birthday boy, Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports senior writer. Happy birthday, Dennis, and we'll leave it there. He's in Arizona, and that's a good birthday night, by the way. Site of the first college football semifinal of the day. It's Michigan and TCU. And Dennis, let's start with the Horned Frogs. Big task ahead of them. How do they do what no other team's been able to do this season, and that's beat the Maize and Blue?
Well, they have a good, contract or a pattern of what they've done this year. They're very comfortable with falling behind. They're very comfortable with falling behind by a big margin. Usually teams that do that don't last this long, don't make it through. They've done that. It has become their identity, guys. In 5 of their 12 victories, they've had come from behind. Now, part of that was down 3-0 in Colorado in the opener, but some of that was down 14-0 to Texas Tech. 18 on the road at West Virginia, coming back to win. So I think they're very comfortable going into the second half and fourth quarter behind. But countering that is Michigan, which has the biggest delta/point differential in the country. They're 206 points better than the opposition this year in the second half. That's an average of 16 points. And I don't have to remind people what they did to Ohio State in that championship, or that game that got them to the championship. Later in November, 28-3 in the second half, just routed the Buckeyes, and I think that is really, the way to sum this game up. Michigan in the second half, and TCU playing from behind. Who's going to win?
All right, Dennis, let's take a look real quickly at the favorites here. You look at Michigan, of course, undefeated, trying to get to 13-0 for the first time in program history there. They are led by that running attack. We've seen Edwards over 400 yards the last couple of games. What's the keys to a Michigan victory? Is it as simple as that, just run over TCU with that powerful offensive line?
Yeah, it really is. Look, how many teams lose a consensus All-America running back and get to this point? That's exactly what has happened to Michigan. Blake Corum, I would submit, was the heart and soul of that offense. J.J. McCarthy, the sophomore quarterback, is more of a game manager at this point. I think he's still developing. I feel comfortable saying that. It was the running attack. 2-time offensive line of the year, the Joe Moore Award. Try to lift it. You can't. It's 350 pounds. Michigan's had it for 2 years now. That defines that offense. And you talked about Donovan Edwards. He was a guy that was a capable backup until he had to be the man against really Illinois and Ohio State. Against Ohio State, 216 yards with a very broken right hand. You could see it. It was in a full cast on his right hand as he carried the ball. I'm told that cast now has been reduced, but he still has it on. 216 against Ohio State, 150 or so against Purdue, 401 yards the last 2 games. And so this is the guy they're going to ride. He's sneaky fast. He can turn the corner. He's physical. I would look for J.J. McCarthy to not only hand off to him, but hit their big tight ends, one of them, Luke Schoonmaker, who, again, is sneaky good. This team is going to pound you. They're not going to have many big chunk plays. That's how TCU lives. And I think it's a game of time of possession. If you limit TCU's time of possession and beat them up physically, then Michigan, as we will talk about, should win this game.
Yeah, Michigan actually pulled out those big chunk plays against Ohio State,
yes,
much to everybody's surprise. We think of them as, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They kind of have more than that. It's time for a pick, Dennis. Michigan's favored by 7.5. The total is 58. Who do you like in the Fiesta Bowl and why?
I like Michigan. I like TCU with the points, and I tell you why. They've only been slowed down by one team this year, and that was the game at Texas. That's a big, big rivalry, maybe TCU's biggest rivalry, and that turned into a grinder that they won. I don't think this will be that game for them. I don't think it'll be a 27-point game total. You're talking about 58. I think we're going to go over, because I think it's going to be a shootout to some degree, like a 30-28 game or something like that. I think TCU can get into the end zone 4 times. I think the number here is probably 28-30 to win. I think Michigan will get there with as good as they've been offensively. We haven't even talked about the defense, which has been stifling. 3rd in the country in total defense, 3rd in the country in yards per play, 4.45 per play. So all of the indicators play right into Michigan's hands. So I just think TCU is going to be a thorn in their side all day. offensively. Defensively, it's going to be a challenge. 74th in the country, TCU giving up 377 yards per game. If they were to win the championship, and that would be a big if, they would be the worst defensive team in the wire service era since 1936 to win a national championship.
How about that for a note? Dennis Dodd finishing strong at the Fiesta Bowl. That's the first game up at 4 p.m. Eastern. Dennis, we appreciate the knowledge and the pick. And no surprise here, of the 4 teams in the playoff, TCU had the longest odds to win it all before the season began. We're talking about 200 to 1. They still have the longest odds if the team's still standing. It's 16 to 1. Michigan, by the way, 50 to 1 at the start of the season.
All right, let's go ahead and bring back in Chip Patterson and my guy there, Emory Hunt. Look at it, guys. Look, Michigan favored here by 7.5. The total's about 57.5, 58 there. Currently, I guess right now at 58. Michigan, they've been running the ball on everyone. Like I said, Edwards over 400 yards the last couple of games. Can they run over TCU in that 3-3-5? I'm a little concerned with TCU and their size, but if TCU can keep this thing close like they've done all season long, maybe they've got a shot. We'll start with you, Chip. Who you've got in this game?
Oh, I've got Michigan, and you just mentioned one of the key matchup points, because I do think that offensive line is going to really beat up on a TCU defense that is built to defend a lot of the modern offenses. And, while Michigan's offense is not antiquated, it's a lot more old school than a lot of what TCU is built to stop. I think that the 3-3-5 stack, which utilizes a lot of slants and stunts, tries to get creative. Well, what about just outright physical mashing? I mean, I just imagine Olu Oluwatimi, the best center in the country, just getting to the second level and pancaking some of these versatile but skinnier linebackers. And I think that being able to control the line of scrimmage when they have the ball leads to long drives that keep the clock moving and limit the amount of times that TCU can get on the field. And that is very interesting, because while TCU on the whole is one of the most productive and explosive offenses, they are not very consistent. They are very reliant on the home run play, which means that TCU's offense needs to get a lot of cracks at it in order to hit those home run plays. They need to take a lot of swings in order to get those splash chunk plays that allow them to score points. They do not have a great percentage of finishing drives. And so all of that, I'm going to go with the more consistent team. I'm going to take Michigan, and I'll add this point. There have been 16 college football playoff semifinals. 13 of them have been decided by double digits. 9, more than half, have been decided by 20 plus. If there's a blowout here on December 31st in the college football playoff semifinals, it's Michigan big. So I'll go Michigan, lay the points, and I'll actually take the under because I think that TCU is not going to get a lot of time on the field.
Totally agree with you, Chip. I'm laying these points with Michigan. I even go back to what we used to see from Michigan under Gary Moeller, under Lloyd Carr. Coach Harbaugh has brought it back. O-line, D-line play. Michigan was known for their O-line, their tight end play, their D-line play. All of those things are back now for the Wolverines. And we got a glimpse of what could potentially happen versus a team that's similar in style, in philosophy, like Kansas State. They went up front. They want to beat you up with their run game. Best way to stop a 3-4 is the same way you could stop a 3-3-5 stack. That's ace formation. That's double tight behind that big offensive line, maybe even toss a fullback in there as well, and just run downhill. You can't get off blocks. You can't beat double teams. You got to make sure you don't get reach block as well. I don't see TCU's defense being able to do this. And on the other side, offensively speaking, can they find that level of consistency? I don't think they can, because Michigan's defense can get pressure. We saw Kansas State have their opportunities to get pressure on the quarterback, Max Duggan, and he's a little bit more reckless with the football than a lot of people want to admit. So I expect some turnovers as well. I see this one being 24-10. So I'm like you. I'm laying these points with Michigan, but I'm also smashing that under. I don't think we're going to get this point spread. I'm going to see this total points at all.
Emory, I'm sure you can appreciate this as a former college football player. Hey, TCU, they're going to have to bow their neck, man. This is going to be a phone booth game. I don't know if they're equipped for this. So we're going to have to find out about Michigan trying to win their first national title since 1997. Last time they were in the Fiesta Bowl, guess who their quarterback was at Michigan? Guys?
Jim Harbaugh.
Jim Harbaugh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right, 1986. Good stuff, Chip, and Emory, we'll talk to you guys later. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and recap the Fiesta Bowl picks out there. In Glendale, Arizona, number 3, TCU against number 2, Michigan. Chip Patterson, he's taking Michigan, and he's hammering the under. Emory, He's also taken Michigan, and Dennis Dodd, he's got Michigan winning, but TCU covering in the Fiesta Bowl.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.